Okay, good morning, people. Sorry I was having a lot of technical difficulties with my tech and my camera and everything yesterday, and sorry this wasn't posted earlier. But today we're going to be doing a demo on how to sculpt the mouth. So we can recycle the clay that we used for our practices for our eyes earlier, and we can use that clay for the mouth. We don't have to break out a new piece. We can, if you want, you could just use fresh clay for this, but we don't need to save the eyes practice, the mouth practice, and stuff like that. Our goal is ultimately to just learn how to do it a few times. Again, I don't expect anybody to be a master sculptor on their first, second, or even third eye, but our goal here is to learn how to make these pieces, and ultimately we're going to create a full face from scratch with all of our clay. So what we're going to do to get started is I've used the old clay and I've kind of mushed it down into a flat little piece. Again, we always want to keep a consistent thickness of clay. We don't want to have it too thick in one part and too thin in another. Again, my camera's glitching out again, so you're just going to have to bear with it as far as the videos go. Hopefully we can get to the end of this. So what I'm doing right now is I'm getting rid of all those folds and creases. Again, we want to avoid any of those, because where you have a fold or where you may have a crease, if you do end up baking this later on, it tends to crack where there are folds and creases. So the smoother and more together your clay is, the better. And again, you can see a relatively, pretty evenly thick throughout the entire thing. What I've created here is a little slab. The slab itself can be about, let's say, about 2/4 thick, would be fine. We don't have to work gigantic, so if you want to think about how big you should be working, or to give you a little bit of scale, well, that would be about a little bit bigger than 2/4, maybe about 1/4 wide. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take our little wooden tool over here, and we're going to just make a little line. We're not trying to cut the clay, we're not trying to go all the way through it. That line can be about the thickness of 1/4, the width of 1/4, and that line does not need to be too deep. It is really just a reference for us. That's about how big we're going to make the mouth. I'm kind of practicing with the idea that I'm going to be making the face of a baby, so we're going to make a kind of smaller mouth and practice a little smaller now. For the scale for the chin, we're going to again kind of make a little ball of clay. That ball of clay we want to make is we want to keep it about the size of a nickel. So we're going a little smaller than last time. Last time we used 1/4 as our reference. This time we're going to use a nickel. So I've got my little bit of clay, just like I made the eyeball. Going to roll it around in my hands, just trying to make like a pretty even meatball, a sphere. And the goal again with this is to avoid any sort of little cracks or fine lines or crevices. You can kind of see when the camera's not glitching. You can kind of see those little creases. We want to smooth them out with our fingers. Sorry again for the little flashes in and out, but I'll make sure that we see everything in the end. So I'm going to keep rolling this until I can kind of get it all smoothed out. And again, this is less clay than we used for the eye. We are going to kind of keep this down to about the size of a nickel. You can see on mine, when you look at it as a little egg or a little meatball, it looks a little smaller than a nickel, and that's fine. And then what we're going to do is we're going to start, just like the eyeball, flattening out one side. We want to kind of keep it round on the top and flat on the bottom, like that hamburger, kind of top of the hamburger bun kind of shape. So when you look at it from the side, you can see here we've got it sort of flat, and then here we sort of have that half dome. That's going to be the start of my chin. All right, and to set up, again, we'll kind of make sure it's round and then flat, just like the eyeball when we made the eye. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to place that so it's sort of sitting half, not even half on that little slab that I made, and kind of half off. All right, we want to leave a little space here because that's where that lower lip is going to go, but we do want the little chin. So what we want to do is we want to kind of start pressing that in together, and what we can do is kind of push those little edges of my face down into that. So that little slab that I made is starting to kind of like wrap around a little bit on that chin. And now I'm going to start blending that chin into the bottom of that face. And again, remember that some of that little chin was already on top of that slab. And Again, sorry for the technical difficulties. I'll re-record this video someday with no problems and post it. Okay, listen, it's 2020. The key is anything okay in 2020? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue. You can see I could start mushing that chin in. I don't want to make this chin super pointed, so I can kind of press up on the bottom. But most importantly, what I want to do is I want to kind of smooth out any of those folds and creases and make this look like it's one continuous piece of clay. So to make two pieces into one. All right, and I will just kind of again continue smoothing with my finger, pressing and smoothing, pressing and smoothing, pressing and smoothing until it sort of starts to come together. And what you see, I have mine kind of pointed. I don't want a big pointy chin. A little sort of, for me, the little baby face, nice and rounded. I'm going to push it in. And the biggest thing that I want to see is relatively symmetrical. But when we look at this from the side, we want to see that little bump out for the chin, and then it goes into the lip. So we got that little bump. We didn't lose that bump. Obviously, the side can stay flat. And, you know, for the most part, the top surface over here is all blended in together. My little mouth is kind of turned into a frown. I'm going to kind of push things around to kind of just make it at least straight across for this first one. Now, you can grab a piece of old clay, or if you want, you can grab a piece off your block. One long piece is fine. What we want to do is kind of came up in two pieces together. We're going to mush that together. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start rolling that in my fingers. And what I want to do is I want to kind of roll this out into a little like hot dog or sausage shape. Now, I don't want to roll this out really long or really thin. So as you're rolling it to smooth it out, it's inevitably going to get thinner and longer. So what we can do is kind of like fold back on itself, kind of mush it together, smooth it out, a little sort of sausage shape. And this is going to be the formation of that lower lip. So again, I'm smoothing out all my little cracks and crevices. Again, anything you're missing with the sort of camera flicker issue, trust me, I'm gonna make sure you don't miss it for the grain thing. All right, so I'm rolling this out, rolling it out. How thick should I leave this? Well, what we want is we want just a little bit thicker than what one of these little sort of like stressed out beads, the ones that they kind of push out of an extruder for the actual clay. You can see those little ones that we broke off. What we want is we want a little bit thicker than that, okay? And nice and round, nice and smooth. It's okay if it's a little long. We can always sort of trim it down. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of take a look at it right there, just putting it above that little bit of the chin. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, one more time, and now what I'm going to do is at about the points where you see like the edge of that mouth, I'm just going to kind of pinch those things. So you can see the shape that I'm forming. It's kind of like that round form, and the edges are getting a little pinched. So that is the start of the lower lip. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start kind of pressing that into the clay a little bit. And what I want to do is I want to sort of preserve the roundness of the top part of this lip. But what I want to is I want to connect the lower part of the lip to my chin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start pressing in with my fingers, and I'm just going to try to blend that lower part in. Now you might find that you have a little extra over here. That's okay. We can kind of almost just pinch some of that off to keep it in line with the rest of the little part of the chin line or jaw line. So I'm going to pinch a little bit of that off. You can see I've kept the roundness of the top part of the lower lip, and now it's a little painstaking. My finger's a little fatter and chubbier than yours, so you might have an easier time of getting in there. But what we want to do is we want to kind of blend that bottom part into our chin. And the goal there is to still have that chin bumping out, but also have that little sort of like recessed area right underneath the lip. Okay, especially if we're doing a young child sort of portrait or the portrait of a baby. Trust me on this one, of someone who's examined his own daughter's face endlessly and has that little recessed area. So I'm going to continue to kind of work that over with my fingers to just, again, make any folds or where the two pieces of clay sort of disappear the best you can. Okay, the more blended those things are, the less chances you get for cracks and problems in the final one, which we will ultimately bake. I'm gonna get there, and I'm just gonna kind of touch up. I'll work over here on the sides a little bit, push that chin over there a little bit, and take a look and show you what we have down here. We have, you know, that rounded off part of the chin. Touch these things up as I see them. Rounded chin from the side view, chin sticking out, bumps out to that lower lip, and that's our lower lip. And I've tried to keep that part right here where my fingers touching nice and round, and I can pinch the outside edges over here. I can pinch them down. All right, now we're going to start working on the upper lip. So for the upper lip, again, you can smush together some clay that you had from the eye. We can pull off some clay off of our actual thing. And if you do pull off from your clay, pull off like two pieces like what I just have over here. What we're going to do is we want to kind of blend those two pieces together, make them one. Okay, smoothing out any crease, and we're going to kind of start to flatten them out a little bit, just like we flatten out that original slab that we started working on. We want, you know, kind of relatively evenly thick. I'm going to do that on both sides on this piece over here. If you don't do it on this piece on both sides, you could again end up with problems in the grand scheme, and we want to learn how to sculpt in a way that's going to be just the proper and professional way. So what I'm doing right now is I'm kind of blending those two together. You know, it's starting to get a little thin. What I'll do is I can even fold it in half and mush those two together if I want. Kind of just, again, like if you start to feel what you're working on is getting a little too thin, and you've seen me hold it up to the camera over there, when it starts to feel too thin, really just fold your clay up and like mush it back together. It will make it a little thicker, give yourself a little bit more clay to work with. And again, we don't want to make any of the things that we make, whether it's an eyelid, whether it's a lip or anything else like that, we don't want to make it super thin. Thin is no good. Thin is brittle. Thin breaks. Thin cracks. And you can see right now about the thickness that I'm working with. Nice little sort of rectangle. That rectangle should be enough to really kind of cover, again, this is going to be your upper lip, sort of cover the base that we've made over there. And I can't stress this enough, your edge, that thin edge, really take the time to smoothen that out, especially on the edge that's going to be the upper lip. The smoother, it's so hard to get back in there and fix it once you start attaching it. So we want to make sure that this is nice, smooth, even thickness, and round. That's important. So then what we're going to do is we're going to kind of see how that fits, see if it's big enough, long enough. You can see how that's working on my page. Now, a couple things we want to do. One, we kind of want to work to the middle of this. So what I'm going to do here with my thumbs is I'm pinching a little bit to kind of make two little bumps over here. This is going to be the start of the formation of the upper lip. So, you know, you can make them a little poutier and go up, but we want a little dip. We want to try to keep that in the center, a little dip with our thumbs. We want a little indent coming out the bottom. You know, we don't want to thin anything out. You can see I'm still maintaining my thickness, but this is going to be the start of my lips. And I can even come in here and sort of round that back edge. When I'm pressing down into the paper, this is starting to get really kind of flat. I'll round that off. This is going to be the start to that upper lip. Now, you can see how that fits over here already. All right, it's starting to look like a mouth already. So before I do anything more and attach it, I do want to try to make that little indentation that happens right down the middle over here. And what I'm going to use is I'm going to use my little wooden tool. I'm going to try not to just jab it in there. But what I want to do is kind of make a little bump I want to try to smoothen out anything that might look a little too angular or, you know, unrealistic. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to kind of pinch again a little bit together, kind of smoothing out that little bump that I made. And you can see what I'm starting to do from above. So I've got that little crease and fold, which is like right underneath the middle of your nose, and this is the upper part of the lip. So when you look at it from this way, you can see that center crease that I started with my wooden tool. I've kind of pinched it to kind of make these two little edges pop out a little bit more. And on the underneath part, I still have my lip. So we have the start of what's going to be our upper lip. Placement, we don't want to put it like straight on like this. We want to kind of tilt it so it's almost on top of that lower lip a little bit, and you can already see that it's starting to look like a little bit of a mouth. Get in there a little bit closer. Okay, and we want to kind of position it, and we can kind of manipulate it a little bit. My best advice is try to make it look exactly the way you want it before you start blending. So I kind of have my little bump, I have my divot, I have, you know, all the size and shape over here, and now what I want to do is I want to kind of just press in these edges. Okay, I'm not pressing in the middle, I'm not pressing over here. I'm really trying not to ruin the edge that I created over here, but I'm pressing in the outside edges to where I get this sort of sticking on real good. And then where we see where my fingertips are, we really want to kind of smoothen out and make those two form into one. And you'll see, you know what, I mean, I know it feels a little bit drawn out, but, you know, it's only been 16 minutes of me doing this, and boom, we've got a mouth. All right, we can tweak it a little bit. We could try to make it smile. We could try to adjust it, but we just want to kind of get those basic parts and understand how to make those basic parts. Again, manipulating that upper lip and making it look good, making it work before you attach it is good. And again, we're really focused on trying to go for symmetry. All right, so that's one of the things we're going with. So you can see it from all angles over here. As usual, once you get to this point, I would sort of smooth everything out, and I would take 2 pictures of it, at least 2 pictures of it from a lower angle, all right, or side, and then straight on, so I could see what you did and how you did it. All right, and with that, that is sculpting the mouth. All right, and we're going to do a second mouth later this week. I'm going to give you plenty of time for this class time to do it. I hope this video worked. I'm sorry for the little glitches. I don't think it should have hurt the grand thing, and you'll be submitting photos of this. Happy sculpting, everybody. Bye.